Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are super happy to be here today because we have a very nice guest. But first, I will say hello to Jamie and let her make the introductions. How's it going, girl?
Good. Happy to be here. Happy to have Carrie Denning. Carrie is the founder of Place as Medicine, an organization dedicated to building a healthier environment from our homes to our neighborhoods and the broader world. Her mission is to share knowledge, elevate conversations, build healthy places, and drive change. Although she always recognized the importance of access to nature, physical activity, and social spaces, her perspective shifted after becoming a mother. Despite 15 years in the industry, she's not fully aware of the profound connection between our living environment and our health. Carrie spent her career working to enhance the places where we live. She's had roles at IBM, at Google's urban innovation team, and again, she's really we're so excited to have her here, her education and expertise to share about the importance of the spaces we live in. So Carrie, tell us how, it looks like after you became a mom, things sort of the volume was turned up for you a little bit, but tell us how you got into this field.
Yeah, so I have been doing, first of all, thank you. This is fun to be on, and it's been fun to get to know you guys the past week, couple weeks or so. I got into the whole space. So my background has always been in cities and how do you innovate in cities and make the environments we live in better. And, whether it was making it easier to park or, I don't know, making our ground floor retail more seamless and interesting. I was always focused on how to make the city better. And we did spend a lot of time talking about things like parks and making sure there was a lot of community and social spaces and things like that. But what basically happened for me is that kind of a confluence of stuff. I had my own health experiences with really bad sinus infections, and it wasn't until kind of thinking outside of the box of, oh, let me focus on diet and let me cut out a bunch of stuff. And
Mhm.
suddenly the sinus infections went away. And I started, telling everyone I knew, like, oh my God, all this health stuff, it's so interesting. You've got to think outside the box. And I think I kind of drove everyone crazy. And um, what I did kind of a step back of, hey, all this, it's really interesting how you can really shape your health by doing things differently, by eating differently or spending time outside or whatever. And I
Mhm.
thought, this is so amazing. I want to be part of this. How can I be part of it? And then I took a step back and I was like, wait, my profession, like all I'm doing is focusing on making cities better. Why am I not thinking about it from the health angle of, this isn't just about finding a parking space faster. This is about fundamentally making people feel better in their apartments and in their schools and, all of that. And yes, at the same time, I was having my son and buying, mattresses and cribs and things like that. And I realized I knew absolutely nothing. And
Mhm.
it was just kind of this ridiculous moment of, again, shame on me. Like, this is literally my job, and I have no idea what kind of rug to buy him or air filter or, you know, it's only through COVID, you learn what a HEPA filter is. And so it really got me down this path of thinking, this is such a missed opportunity. And like, I want to focus on this more.
How did you parlay that into your career?
Yeah, so it's worked out. It's incredibly complementary. So what I do now is I run the innovation and sustainability teams at at a company called Jamestown LP. So that's my day job. And within that, we have a global portfolio, office, residential, kind of around the world. And so with that, I can take a step back as well and think about how can we make these places really healthy? Can we try different types of paints? Can we look at different types of carpet? So that's kind of what I do in my daytime. Um, and a lot of this interest was really a kick for me in terms of like let's focus on healthy places and healthy planet. Then what I've been doing for the past year is creating an organization of sorts called Place as Medicine. The idea is just as we call food as medicine or
Mhm.
exercise as medicine. I mean, we don't really do that, but talk about how the places we live in can be medicine. And so it's a bit of a four-pronged approach, but um, kind of the reason I'm here is a good big chunk of it is about getting information to people and sharing advice on, again, what kind of rug to buy, what are the benefits of being in sunlight. And despite the fact that LEDs are great for us from an energy efficiency standpoint, they're actually really unhealthy for us. So trying to just get information into people's hands in this field that we're talking about, but it's very disparate. Like you have the architects, you have the interior designers, you have the city planners, you have the real estate people, the doctors. No one's really talking about it in totality.
Yeah. Very, very, very good point. Paige?
I am still chuckling because we discussed before we start that you're traveling and you're in someplace in California. And I'm laughing because, so we have two sons, our oldest two sons. One is in LA and the other is in San Francisco. And my anxiety when we visit, as far as finding a parking space, I know you just made that offhanded remark. I can't tell you how much anxiety I have about that. And we had gone to a concert in LA, the Beach Boys, and I wish I could remember. It's kind of a dome in the mountainous areas, but it's more downtown LA. I just went blank on the name of that. But finding a parking spot and getting us in and then getting us out, talk about high stress. I mean, for me, it took all the fun out of it. It took an hour or two to get out of there and to get to the car, and our boys had to go get the car and come back and get us because it was too far. And so you talk a lot about how just as we view our medicine as food, the homes we live in, our environment we live in, our medicine too. So do you want to talk about how where we live can make us sick or help us thrive?
Yes, definitely. And there's so many ways. I think one of the kind of, I don't want to say alarming, but maybe motivating points is like there's just so many ways that can make us sick or not. And so I'll just focus on a few things. There's the obvious ones of having good air quality, good ventilation, water quality is a big one. But a recent study came out that's terrifying. This woman, Miriam Diamond, and you can Google it. It was an academic study. They did a study on flame retardants, and they looked at children's mattresses, and they looked at 16 different brands across North America, high quality, low quality, and they found that they are off-gassing flame retardants, despite in many places them being banned, and as well as phthalates, which is a type of material, not material, but I don't even know what you would call it. It's underlying basis of, it's a chemical basis. Sorry, you're gonna have to edit that out. But phthalates, that it's the reason plastic is malleable. And it is an endocrine disruptor, and it severely disrupts hormones, especially for boys. So they found phthalates in mattresses, they found flame retardants, and these are directly related, especially flame retardants, to lower IQ. And these are things that, were banned in children's pajamas in the 70s. And the kind of alarming part about it is it's a lot of these are being emitted because children's bodies are so warm that it's warming up these, and it's off-gassing. And so that's just like one extremely alarming example of how the materials in your home, you're likely unaware of it. And you're trying to do the right thing by buying your child a great crib mattress and spending a lot of time looking into it, but unbeknownst to you, there are these challenges with it. So that's one example that's somewhat, I wanted to start with one that was a little more alarming, and why you need to look for things like organic mattresses, and you need to spend more money on the organic mattress from Nature or avocado mattress, as opposed to one that has synthetic chemicals or synthetic materials in it. Another one that's a really interesting one is the paint in your home. So most likely it's acrylic paint or acrylic-based paint. You might say low VOC, it might say zero VOC. You're probably buying a zero VOC paint, which is volatile organic compound. That's what VOC stands for. I think what a lot of people don't know, and I did not know, is when we say zero or low VOC paint, it's only referring to the VOCs that affect our ozone. That is what the EPA regulates. It is not referring to any of VOCs that affect human health in any way. And regardless of the VOC part, there are unhealthy chemicals in paint that are part of the binders or the pigments that are also bad for you, even again, if it's paint. So what's interesting with this, with mattress, and same with paint, we can sidestep, say, I'm not going to use that paint entirely. And there are other options you can use, like mineral paints or chalk paints, and I can talk about that. But there are so many different aspects where the end consumer is just not, unfortunately, we're not educated on this at all. There are no nutrition facts, there's no ingredient lists. I tried to buy my mom a rug for the playroom that she's building for grandchildren, and I went on a great website. I found a rug that said 100% organic cotton. I happened to ask the question, hey, what's the backing on this? And she's like, oh, it's plastic backing. And I'm like, well, why did you say it was 100% organic cotton? Like, it's 99%, like the 1% is the plastic. And so it's really, really hard to kind of find this stuff. But yes, essentially, it's the materials, it's the paint, it's the water, it's the air. Mold is a really big thing, which we can talk about as well. But there's lighting, there's all sorts of aspects in your home. And then, we can think about it broadly with the neighborhood and beyond that. Mm-hmm.
Right, because we can do everything we can to keep our bodies healthy, but if we do all we can to keep our bodies healthy, and Jamie might be able to talk to that, but if your environment is poisoning you, then it doesn't matter if you're eating apples and salads and lean proteins and things like that all day long. So I'll let you talk, Jamie.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about your research and your understanding of mold. We know that that as the weather situation and the climate change situation is evolving, we've seen patterns of weather change, and we've seen a lot, like, for instance, well, certainly the southern part of California, of course, with wildfires, but we're seeing wildfires everywhere in all states now, or many states, excuse me, that we haven't really seen them before or as prevalent. We're now also seeing, major hurricanes and major flooding across the country, but especially, as we know, in the Southeast. I live in the Houston area, so hurricanes are a consideration here, and flooding is always a consideration, a lot of moisture. So mold is a thing, right? There was a time, many years of my life, where I thought, oh, I'll retire in Florida, no problem, of course. Like, why would I not? It's a beautiful state. And I've seen what the weather has done there. And I understand the way structures can be penetrated by moisture. And there's no way you could pay me enough money to ever live in Florida after knowing what I know about mold and the storms they've had and the flooding they've had. All of the entire coast of Florida, all of those homes are going to have issues with mold. And the ones that don't will be probably ones that people have, won't put up for sale and will have kept because they've remediated correctly. So tell me a little bit about I've experienced the dangers of mold and the health effects of mold. Tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, mold is a really, really challenging one. I was listening to, Paige knows this, I shared this early on, but there's a woman who does a podcast called Holistic Homes, and she had someone named Dr. Christina Bear come on and speak a bit. And it's just, and one of them, I can't remember if it was the host or if it was Christina on the podcast, but essentially mold is the most catastrophic thing that can happen to your home after a fire. Like it's as in the second most catastrophic thing. Right. And it is it's true. The research I've done on this is, it's just a really awful situation because the symptoms can be so broad. I mean, they think that 96% of sinus cases could be mold, which is fascinating. Absolutely. It does absolutely cause metabolic issues, weight gain, weight loss, brain fog, increased anxiety. Like the spectrum is vast. And when you go to the doctor about it, mold, if anything, they reference, and they often don't even know how to treat it. So from a medical perspective, it's a black box. And then for the home it's extremely challenging too, because I don't want to alarm you, Jamie, but it's not just in the Southeast US. Like you could have like, the nail on your roof isn't, it's not sealed correctly, and you can just get water coming and dripping, and that can cause mold. Really, wherever there's a leak, water penetration, there could be mold. It's estimated 85% of office buildings have mold in some way. And so it's just this like extremely broad thing. I just started a podcast for Places Medicine, and I'm having a woman named Ariana Thacker. She's the CEO of Mold Co. I'm having her come on in a bit to talk more about this. So I'll have more insight then. But she thinks roughly 30 to 40 million Americans could have mold, like sickness. And we were really flying blind on it. And all the powers that be, it seems like, are kind of conspiring to not have a system that gets people better. There's home insurance, it's an exclusion. It's not part of renter's insurance. For renter's insurance, often you can't even bring your own mold inspector in, which in many cases makes sense to me as a landlord, but there's so many ways the system's conspiring. And same with your health insurance. So it's a really challenging thing with mold, that it's not talked about enough. And there's different levels of what you can do about it. Like as a homeowner, there are certainly things you can do. That's when you have the actual power to do things, assuming you have the money to tear something out and remediate. It becomes much more challenging when you're the renter. And where do you go with that? I have a friend who has mold in the HVAC system in an apartment building that she lives in. And there is honestly not much she can do besides move in that situation. But there are, there's movement happening. I think what Mold Co. is doing is actually really interesting. They're approaching the problem of mold from the medical side. And there's a doctor, Dr. Shoemaker, who's on their his protocol. And so what they're doing is making it very inexpensive to assess whether or not you have the underlying genetic predisposition that 25% of Americans potentially have towards severe reactions to mold. They're lowering the cost of those tests. They're providing the right like supplemental
it's a whole cocktail
at a lower price point for people. So I do think that there will become increasingly more knowledge and awareness of this, and a little less of like, oh no, it's just you're tired, or oh, you're just not eating well, or it's just in your head. And so I think there'll be more around addressing it.
Yes, I experienced mold illness living in a home in the Northeast that had a leak inside the ceiling, and I had installed this ceiling fan that was inside the ceiling and sort of pulled air down onto me. I slept under it every night, and black mold was literally just feeding into my body. And it was about 10 months I was there, maybe a little less, maybe 9 months that I was there. I'm working from home most days.
Yeah.
And no matter what I noticed that I just didn't, my health, as I lived there, my health was declining. And then it declined very rapidly, very quickly. Gained a bunch of weight, didn't change anything, gained a bunch of weight, could not stay awake, had all kinds of issues, all kinds of systemic, inflammation and joint and muscle issues. And it took months until probably June. I got out of the home January, and I was down here in Texas getting treatment for what I thought was menopausal symptoms and other things. And they somebody finally almost 6 months later said, has anyone ever talked to you about mold toxicity? And I was like, what? No. And she said, have you been in a home that had mold? And I said, well, yeah, I was in this place in Jersey. And she said, well, where was it? And I told her, and she said, you were sleeping under that black mold for months, and it is
Yeah.
in it's everywhere. It's everywhere in your system. So I started doing I did the tests through the Shoemaker protocol and
Hmm.
did the tests, and they were all positive. And I did parts of the protocol, and I chose to do some. By that point, it had flipped the switch of autoimmunity for me.
Yeah.
And I was, living in a state of autoimmunity. And because I had made some choices with my diet for years leading up to that point, I had made some choices with my diet, and I was doing some things that I thought were I was told were very healthy for me, but were actually blocking the thyroid function in my body. So my thyroid had stopped functioning, and my organs could not cleanse themselves. And I had this immense, just this total backup of all kinds of toxins, including mold. And
Hmm.
my organs started shutting down. So it was just a mess. And the detoxing took time. It took about solid 6 months to really start to feel better. In my experience, detox takes as long as the buildup of the illness. If you're doing it consistently. So my illness buildup was about 10 months, and they say that I will have to be detoxing actively for at least 10 months to kind
Oh
of
my gosh.
reverse what happened. So that's in process, and all kinds of things had to change, all kinds of things. So now the minute that I smell any kind of moisture in the home here in Houston, I am like a rabid dog about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so happy that soon into it, at least somebody figured out what it was. I mean, it's horrible. Once you get like the immune system kind of like ratchet up, then for people, unfortunately, these symptoms last for a long time, and it's so easily triggered. But
Yes, it was.
yeah,
It's getting
it's
better.
hugely,
It's much slower than I thought it would be.
yeah, it's very problematic.
Yeah, as you were saying, Jamie, I've never heard you say that before, that as it takes as long as you were exposed, and that's how long it takes to get it out of your system. I was thinking as you were saying that, since our focus is on helping people that are suffering from the effects of ultra processed food, they've done these behaviors for years, decades, right? And people so much want to just immediately have resolve these issues and have answers, but sometimes these journeys take a long time to resolve. It's not just an overnight fix, and it's the same way with people recovering from ultra processed food, especially because you're talking about how much mold exposure there is out there. Well, think about all the exposure we have to ultra processed food. Even if
Mhm.
you're buying dog food, there's candy bars on the counter. I mean, just everywhere. But as you were saying that, I was thinking about what Carrie's doing for us, and that is providing opportunities for those that are, well, just in general health, but also specifically for us that are on a recovery journey, about creating environments to help people along our journey. Carrie, do you have some things that you think are more beneficial than others for people that are on this journey? What are the things in the home that you want to share that would be the most beneficial for people
Yeah.
and their recovery journey, that benefits their health? What is there anything that jumps out of all? Maybe you have a short list.
I do, and I have it up. But I would say for just wrapping on mold, like if you do smell damp and musty and water, and if your kids do have, symptoms that are, sinusy or exhaustion, shortness of breath, or if you do, I highly recommend just doing a mold test.
Yep.
Like I can give you all this advice about things to do in your home, but if you have mold, like just address that up front. There's there's an ERMI test. I can send you some links
Yeah,
afterwards
we
on the
need to know what
various things.
specifically. There's so many mold tests. And when you say mold tests, you might
Yeah,
have thinking about going and buying the kit from Home Depot, but I don't think that's the kind of mold test you're talking about.
I will follow up with you guys with a list. But there's some that are good. There are dust wipe tests. You can also do the cheek swab that Moldco does to see, what's your level of exposure. So there's some things you could do. So I would rule out mold, certainly, just if that's something you're concerned about in your environment. But yeah, recommendations. I think
Carrie,
like
can I,
one of
Carrie,
the,
can I say one
yeah,
more thing? I'm grateful we have symptoms. I'm just grateful
yes,
that, because that gives you it, Jamie likes to say, call them dashboard lights. Your dashboard light is going on, blinking. So I'm grateful there are symptoms. And honestly, when you're in addiction, there's symptoms, there's dashboard lights too. So anyway, I just wanted to add that. Go,
Yes, I think
proceed.
that's crucial. So yeah, things you can do. I think the number one thing, and I'm gonna, it's not just your home, but let's talk about the outdoors too. And that could be your lawn, but that could be, you live in a city and it's the broader neighborhood. But I think the first and most important thing is going outside and getting sunlight, no matter what. Um,
Agreed.
just even on a cloudy day, just go outside when it's the light, the sun is in the sky, and you don't have to have your skin exposed, but infrared light, which is not part of the visible spectrums, majority of the light spectrum is so critical for us. And we don't get it indoors anymore because of LEDs and because of e-glazing on our windows.
That's right.
Which again, I'm a huge fan of. Like I run a sustainability team. I feel very strongly about, reducing our carbon footprint, but unfortunately, we're not getting the infrared we used to get from incandescent bulbs, which is why they were so hot. And so just spending time outside, 15 minutes. If you're a person of color, you need to spend more time. So maybe 30 minutes. You can wear clothing. There's a study, a man named Scott Zimmerman, who I will also be interviewing at some point, where infrared light can penetrate up to 8 centimeters. So you can be wearing a puffy jacket and still get the benefits of sunlight, but you need to get it. They did a study where basically what some of the thinking with infrared is that it produces melatonin, which is actually the melatonin that your cells use to help metabolize. It's not your sleepy melatonin. It gets the mitochondria going, and it actually metabolizes glucose. And so it does have a profound impact on our metabolic systems. And so now, can really knock things off. So I'd say sunlight is, one of the most important things there, and just getting outside. Then if you're going to do sunlight, go near something that's green, because what's very cool is that photosynthesis and chlorophyll, like the way that all works, essentially, when you're around something green, the sunlight reflects off of it. And so you actually get even more exposure to infrared when you're by trees. If you Google infrared picture of a tree, you'll see that it's all like this frosty white kind of looking, because it's all the sunlight reflecting. So
Yes.
those are the most basic, easy things. Go outside, even in winter, which I know is very hard to do living in New York City. I don't want to be outside. And then try to do it near something green. So that's the easiest thing. Then I think after that, cleaning supplies and cleaning practices. So switch to unscented. You can don't do anything unless you really love it and you don't think there's a sensitivity. There's really no, a synthetic fragrance. I really don't recommend doing that. If you want fragrances, you can, buy, spray cleaners or floor cleaners with an essential oil smell, but really opt towards non-toxic cleaning supplies across the board, laundry detergent. These are not more expensive. You can make your own. Like, I think that's just like the way to move. Then I think after that, it's kind of a choose your own adventure on where you go. My next move would be to focus on bedding, because you spend a third of your life in bed, and I'm going to prioritize that. It's I think if you have children, my move would be to prioritize my kid first if budget's an issue, and I would first address what kind of mattress are they sleeping on. Going back to my flame retardant thing, like, you want an organic mattress with non-synthetic materials, no plastics in them. You want to make sure there's no flame retardants in them. So I would go after bedding, pillows, blankets, all of that, towels. If I have small children, also, especially in the crawling stage, I would do rugs. You want to really avoid rugs with any plastic in them. They can often be coated with flame retardants. So opting towards, your organic cotton, wool, move in that direction. It does make it more expensive, and cotton, they're just not as durable, but
Mhm.
it's so much better than having your child playing on a flame retardant coated rug. You especially want
Right.
to avoid anything that says like water resistant or stain resistant, because that's just
Mhm.
coated in forever chemicals to get there.
Yes.
So it's just all these things, like it's so
Okay.
deeply frustrating how people just don't know. And you think, like we currently have a stain resistant couch, and the cost of replacing that is significant. And I find it deeply frustrating that it's not front and center for people to know this. So those would be some places I would move first if I was doing it. So getting outside, around trees, cleaning supplies, and then I'd do like the vector in on sleep, and if it's budget, who am I focusing on, myself or my children? How do I
Mhm.
address that? Another one that, if you're in the moment of, repainting or you know, doing some sort of renovation, I think paint is an easy one to look at. So I go back to the acrylic paint thing that I mentioned around volatile organic compounds and whatnot. I think also people don't know this, but 58% of the microplastics in the ocean are from paint. Some of it is, yeah, it's awful. So some of it's from ships and docks, but some of it's household paint, and that gets back in our food supply. And so there's this whole circular process here. So
Huge.
it's huge. And like, we don't want to spoil our world either. Like, this is not, it's at least like not something I want to respect the places we live. And you can buy beautiful mineral paints, milk paints, chalk paints. Mineral paint in particular is, easy to apply. It's beautiful, slightly more expensive, but again, there's reasons why, and it's also very durable. With mineral paint also, it's antifungal, so no mold. It's naturally fire resistant. So
Yeah.
there's all these other like amazing qualities around materials in our homes.
I mean, that was a huge statement that you just made about the paint. I had no idea about that. Jamie and I did a podcast on plastic, so we're both of us are very passionate about that topic. And I'm like, why am I just now figuring all this out? I feel like, have I had my head buried in the sand, or has there not been a good job of putting this information out there? How can we get that type of information out there?
I know, and that's, I think it's a really bizarre, and like we focused on straws, and yet plastics around us in so many ways. And
Yeah, the straw thing makes me laugh. I'm like, seriously, this is the hill to
it's,
die on. It's hilarious. There's
yeah, I
so
mean,
many
there's
better things.
there's so much more plastic we throw out in carpets every year. We throw out billions of tons of plastic in carpets.
Oh,
And
I didn't think
Well,
about
yeah, the
that.
back
that
of, yeah. So the
and what's
plastic
lining
thing,
the paper when they give you the paper replacements for some of these plastics people are getting rid of? What do you think's lining the paper? It's
plastic,
Right.
it's
I
hilarious. It's
know.
hilarious. And by the way, the rug thing is real. I had to swap out a rug, and I wanted to find. I don't like to buy rugs or anything or mattresses or used ever or secondhand. I just don't unless it's from a family member. I know where they got it and whatever. Anyway, so I had to buy a rug, and I wanted to keep the price down. And I was looking for a rug. Do you know how hard it is to find a rug that's not washable or water resistant or it is next to impossible. I
And at a reasonable price point.
exactly. I looked for
Yeah.
2 days, and I finally, and I mean intently looking for a rug that was in this price point that allowed me to do what I needed to do on it. And I had to settle for one that it is not an aesthetic solution. But it is one that it minimizes the chemicals and has the price point that I needed. I mean, it really like it was such a thing, and I'm like, why does anyone think washable? Like, who's going to put an 8x10 rug in a washing machine? Who is gonna? No one's going to do that. But they're saying that it's washable. Isn't this wonderful? They're thin. They're not soft. They're literally laden with chemicals to make them washable. Like it's hilarious. It's a joke.
Yeah, I think the
And
rug
it's
was
funny.
so hard. I've been trying to do a post on rugs, and there are options, but they are extremely expensive. And
Oh yeah, no,
spending $1,000 on your child's rug, I think is just
no, no.
like that's
Space that
unrealistic, and it's not okay for like I don't want to be sharing that, but
the space
yeah,
I
rugs
had
are very
was
challenging.
small, and I
Yeah,
did not want to spend $100, and it was pulling teeth to find.
yeah, yeah. Some of the other things I would focus on as well, definitely air filters. The Air Oasis is a good filter. It's especially good for mold. It filters out a lot of mold spores, and that has been recommended by a few mold experts that I know. Water filtration is also a really big one. I
Yes.
think people filter their tap water. They don't filter their tub water, their shower water. And so getting the conversation moving towards full home water filters, I think is a really important one. But it's a hard one because it's also expensive. And for those of us who live in high rises, it's not really in our control. So even if you own your own apartment, it's up to the building whether or not they want to install a water filter. So my hope is that we can push, building codes or, have healthy home rebates or push something in the direction of let's filter all of the water going into this building. Because these filters that exist that are excellent, they do filter out forever chemicals, for example, which is not something our municipalities are doing at this point in time. And despite best efforts, that's going to take a long time. So I'd say if it's in your control, you own your own home, like absolutely do a water filter at the source in the building.
Yeah. Yes.
So
We
that's a
changed
really
all of our
important
water.
one.
Part of my detox process, we changed all of our water out. So the only water I drink or cook with is like filtered from a third party location that we go and pick it up. And it's housed in glass bottles, and it's a whole thing. And I've
I love this.
definitely noticed a huge improvement in my symptoms when I switched to glass for
Yeah.
all of my drinking, all of my water, all of the way that, I mean, it's a workout to get, it's almost 100, like, well, it's probably like 80 pounds, I think my husband said, with, when it's filled with water, these 5-gallon glass water bottles. But it's a workout to get them in. We've had to figure out a way to, to kind of get them from the car to the house when we get them filled. But I've noticed a huge improvement. I use all glass drinking, all glass
Mhm.
storage. I mean, it's huge, and it's a big deal to get the right water filtered. We're not in the place to look at whole home. We would like to. But so what I do is I just use the one shower in the home that has a good filter on the shower that we replace every 4 or 5 months.
Mhm.
We've put in the air purifiers, definitely helped to help with my breathing. And the other thing that we put in, which I read on a mold and mildew forum, was a dehumidifier in humid
Mhm.
environments. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Little things, but there's trade-offs, right? You have these machines going all the time in the home you live in. So you're trading off, well, it's less moisture in the air and it's less mildew potential and it's better for you. But you better air quality, but your electricity bill goes up, bill. The EMFs
Yeah.
it's like you're literally playing whack-a-mole.
No, it's all these trade-offs. It's all these trade-offs.
Mhm.
So there are a few other things I want to just also make sure that we touch on. I do also want to address flooring. Um, it- Water, air is one of these like shocking and frustrating, I think, for the consumer is around flooring. And, the majority of our floors, unless you have hardwood floors, is going to be PVC. It's going to be made out of vinyl. About 10 years ago, so vinyl flooring, you guys, vinyl flooring, I'm sure some of you guys have,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. So it looks very similar to hardwood. It's easy to put on. It's inexpensive. But unfortunately, it's made out of PVC, polyvinyl fluoride. And when I think about healthy home, and the reason I bring up flooring, one of the reasons is it's not just about us, the end occupant. It's about the person creating it. It's about the person living next to the factory that's
True.
creating it. It's
Yeah.
people along the rail line, and I'll get to that, why that's important, where they transport it. It's us. It's then landfill, where it goes. Like, often with healthy home and healthy spaces, we approach it. This woman I love, who's the CEO of a company called Habitable, which is all about healthy building materials, she calls it a keyhole approach. We often just focus on the occupant and we forget about the broad spectrum of the
Yeah.
whole supply chain. So
Right.
PVC, a lot of it is made in a part of Louisiana called Cancer Alley. It's hugely high rates of cancer in this area because of all the chemicals that are being used, not just for PVC, but for other things as well. Then, if you all remember the horrible train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio,
Yes.
you had PVC clouds in the sky, and people are sick there, and that's all going into it's going into a lot of different things. Our pipes, that's a whole other thing which we can get into, but that's contributing to vinyl and vinyl flooring. And so, how do we think about that with our homes? With vinyl flooring, some also may have phthalates in them. Many distributors got, changed up what they used, and now have vinyl without phthalates in it. But there are certainly some brands that still sell vinyl flooring with phthalates in it. And that, you don't want your child, crawling on something that's a potential endocrine disruptor. The area in Canada where a lot of vinyl created, they actually have fewer boys, the indigenous community around the area, because of that, the endocrine disruptors in their, ecosystem. So, vinyl is not allowed or PVC is not allowed in children's toys. So the idea that it's in our flooring and such a ubiquitous thing, and it's zero cost at all on Home Depot, super easy to install. That's something where I think the consumer needs to really be aware and wake up to that, and start to push for alternatives, because right now a lot of the alternatives are much more expensive. So
Well,
that's an
PVC,
area.
that's a good point. Because PVC, in addition to flooring, aren't all of the white pipes that all of our water runs through PVC.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes potable water isn't in the PVC pipes. Or okay, it's safe, but it's, they'll say it's safe to do, but we won't do hot water through it.
Right.
But, with weather patterns changing, some of the areas where the pipes are going are getting a lot hotter. Yes, and so a lot of your water is going through PVC pipes.
You're bringing up that point about these oh, sorry. I thought you had paused.
No, I think my connection's a little unstable. I hope it's okay.
Oh, you're bringing up this point about these manufacturers becoming more aware, just like you may not be familiar with the Food Babe, but she's just very active she's making these big companies aware of the dyes and things like that. So maybe it starts with just awareness and the consumer. I mean, we vote with our pocketbooks, right? And so making consumers aware of this happening will change the marketing scheme out there. So, I mean, is that where you start with it?
Yeah, I think so. I really think so. And I think what like the Food Babe and some of these other people have done has been tremendous in terms of just alerting people that, like, no, that coloring on that birthday cake is horrible for you. And no, you're not crazy for asking, and you're not crazy for telling your kid not to eat the cupcake at the birthday party. Like, I think what she's done is really remarkable. And I think it's a similar thing that's hopefully will happen here, where it starts moving away from like people don't know to people know to people asking the questions. Come across as a little crazy, but then it'll slowly, I hope, shift into more mainstream of like, no, I don't want to buy that flooring. I'd rather buy this option, and I'd rather this option be the same cost. Or at least in this industry, I just want to know the ingredient list. I don't want to
Yeah.
have to scroll down to the
That's right.
bottom of the page on West Elm and see that says two different things, and even then isn't enough. And then I have to email them, and then it takes 2 weeks for them to get back to me. And
Right.
so, yeah, I really do hope it moves in that direction. Another
Yeah.
thing I'd also say, and I know we probably need to wrap up, but another important one for people to consider who have outdoor space is also what are they putting on their lawns? And, you know, 25% of lawn care chemicals that we have in the United States are banned in Europe. And there are, dozens, I think 70 or more studies connecting lawn pesticides with various forms of lymphomas. And we are putting generally the same amount of pesticides on our lawns as we're doing with agriculture. So that's just something I think is another one of these things I think people are aware of, but then we can move towards organic pesticides or natives, which don't need that same amount. They actually are, need less water too. So it's a better situation because even if it's not your lawn, that pesticide ends up in our surface and groundwater. And so it creates this, again, bad feedback loop. So I hope, all of this starting to think about just the environment we live in as part of, there's a group in University of Louisville that I really love, and they call themselves Christina Lee Brown Envirome Institute, kind of like you have your microbiome, you have your envirome, and all of that affects us, whether it's lighting or lawns or, all these different things. And my hope isn't that this is alarmist. It's more, hey, you can actually sidestep this entirely by just choosing mineral paint or getting outside or, native plantings. Like there are ways you can just sidestep instead of just like maybe getting a little bit better in terms of the product, but just doing an entirely different material or equipment or style.
Right. And that's why it was important for us to have you on because, like I mentioned, just like we did a podcast on plastics, everything's great and dandy if you're recovering on your recovery journey and you're doing everything right. But it's good to be aware of these other environmental things too that can also absolutely, just like you talked about with the mold and Jamie's experience, that absolutely affected her recovery journey.
Yeah.
That was not nothing. That was a huge left hook that she never saw coming. And she's on the scramble then if we're not well educated. Oh my gosh, what do I do now? And nobody wants to be with their pants down trying to figure out at that moment, how do I get myself out of this situation?
Yeah.
So that's why I love this conversation, why it's so important to our listeners. So for those that have listening, I love how you said, we're not trying to scare and overwhelm everybody. Is there a simple doable thing that would be a place to start that would be easy and not overwhelming, that would make a big impact on someone's environment?
Yeah, I think there's the steps I said before around like sunlight and whatnot. But yeah, I would kind of take a step back and think about, what are the things. I think it's the question is really like, do I have kids or not? Because I would prioritize what's in their room or the surfaces they touch.
Good point.
So I would go after that first. And as I said before, I really think it's start with bedding. You know, there are a lot of easy things you can do. It's really like your priority set and your budget and how that goes. But the cheap things are sunlight, getting outside, cleaning supplies. So those would be kind of like the moves I would go to first. But then, yeah, it's, do you tackle the lawn or do you tackle the mattress? I think it's kind of what are the big exposure levels that she would have?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
totally laughing about the cleaning supplies because when I buy bleach, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get the linen scent. Oh, they have the lavender over there. Should I get that? Or should I get the fresh ocean breeze?
No, don't do it.
Yeah,
No,
I never
no,
thought about
no,
that before. You
no
just brought
fragrance.
that up today. you've changed my life.
Well, it's all synthetic. So even if you look on your, your shampoo, you want to avoid the one that says fragrance. Just like you
Oh,
avoid
yeah.
natural flavor. If it says fragrance, like Lord knows what's in that, it's not regulated. So
And
avoid that.
yeah, and I'm on the grocery aisle going, sniffing everyone to see which scent I love the best. Uh,
Yeah, avoid that. Yeah. But there are great brands that use essential oils and they smell fantastic and you get lavender and all,
yeah,
there's
great
alternatives
point.
that are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamie, you want to finish up?
I would just say thank you for your time today and appreciate the information. I think you're doing important work and it's something that
Yeah.
I have seen. Um, again, just things that we never, our parents and our grandparents never had to worry about. And I do worry about children, right, that are being born in the last few
Yeah.
years as they age, what their lives will be like. And I think one thing that we don't talk about is the stress it puts on everyone. I mean, there's an immense amount of neurological, physical, you know, biological stress on our bodies that we never had to worry about before.
Yeah.
Well, I am really concerned about future generations and what they'll have to deal with. I think our life expectancy, starting with Generation X, I think is going to be less than the generation before. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very sad.
Yeah.
That had
Yeah.
to be
That's
part
why.
of your motivation too.
Yeah, that was absolutely. It's just like, how many people do you know that have cancer at a young age?
Mhm.
And you kind of wind that back. And when you have a child, you're like, I'm not a doctor. It could come from many things. It could be genetic, but we are living in a more toxic soup than we ever have been before.
Oh,
And so, what are the ways we can just start to remove those things? And if it's making sure the mattress doesn't have a known toxic chemical on it that we've known since the 70s, like, and all I need to do is replace that, like, I'm going to absolutely replace that. And if there's a bigger message I can share around exposures like in many other elements of our daily life, yes, that's something that needs to be more widely known.
well, and again, I appreciate your message. Just living in the area of the country that I live in, my health has deteriorated immensely moving down here. And it's something that, even after being in New Jersey in the mold, right? I've noticed that the time here in this area filled with chemical plants and refineries, and it's a very toxic place to live. I know the area in Louisiana you're talking about. I've not driven through that whole area, but I've bisected Cancer Alley and asked my husband about what it's like to live there. And he'll joke about, oh, well, you grew up in Jersey and there's so many plants in Jersey. And I'm like, it's not like here. So,
Yeah.
the square mileage of the toxic chemical plants in this part of the country is vast. So I think that's something that people need to be aware of if you're not feeling well and you're taking the measures to put in your body foods that your body knows what to do with and are health promoting foods, health promoting lifestyle, and you're still not feeling well, you have to look to your environment.
Yeah. And spend 2 weeks away. Go live somewhere else. Like, if you
See
can.
how it gets better. If
See
it gets better,
how you feel. Yeah.
Oh, that's
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
It's a great. It's funny that you mentioned the cancer rates because I follow Dr. Josh Axe and I'm going to share this quote that I just saw the other day. He said, cancer doesn't happen overnight. It develops quietly when the body becomes too toxic, inflamed, and depleted to protect itself. This isn't about blame, it's about awakening. Because if cancer is driven by lifestyle and environment, then healing is possible and prevention is powerful. You have more control than you think, and it's never too late to build a body cancer can't survive in. So it's exactly to your point that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just were making environment. Again, this was why we wanted to have this conversation with you because environment does matter. Even if we're doing absolutely everything right in our recovery, like Jamie was, things can still happen if you're in an environment that doesn't allow you to flourish.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And we need to talk about the places we live
Yeah.
every time we talk about health.
You've awakened me to a lot. So I really appreciate your time for coming on. Jamie, anything else you want to share?
Please send us those links and we'll incorporate them in the show notes. Thanks all.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank
And
you,
if you want
guys.
to if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U. Bye-bye.
Take care.